Hi there, Texas history teachers, and welcome to our Unit 1 preview. My name is Yvonne Schroeder, and I'm the CTL for this course. I'm really excited to be able to share with you the first unit that we're going to delve into with our kiddos. This unit preview is going to cover the content, the skills, and some of the big themes that we're going to cover in our first unit of the school year. And I have two big suggestions as we're going through this video. First, if you could jot down any questions that you have while we're going through the content. If there's any questions I don't answer over the course of the video or things that still don't make sense, please jot them down and make sure that you contact me sometime in the future or after this video. My contact information is going to be at the end on the last side of the slide of the PowerPoint we're going to go through together. The beauty of the CTL role is that you have someone who's there as a resource and someone who can answer any questions, and someone who's really just there as a thought partner. So please use that as often as you'd like. I actually really love doing that. And then my second suggestion is to open up the Unit 1 plan if you haven't done so already, so you can follow along. We're not going to cover everything on the unit plan in this particular preview, but if you do have any questions, something doesn't make sense, please make sure that you give me a call, shoot me a text, shoot me an email, and ask those questions. I'd hate for anyone to suffer in silence. Well, let's go ahead and get started. Our first unit is called Clash of Cultures, Natives and Europeans. So this unit is really going to focus on how these two cultures came together in the state of Texas. So our unit is also going to allow students to explore how decisions have consequences for others. And that's going to tie into our statement of inquiry, which we'll talk about in just a second. There's two big themes that are running through this unit. The first one being adaptation and modification. So how natives adapt to their environments is going to be the big way that we see that. How did natives survive in the environment that is Texas? The second big theme that we're going to see is interaction. We'll see this in plenty of ways, but just a couple of examples is how the natives interacted with the explorers, how some different groups of explorers interacted with each other. And that's also going to connect to our SOI because it's going to give students an opportunity to explore the positive and negative consequences of the interactions. Now, we are going to go over stage 1, which is, this is the big picture ideas. These are the big ideas that we're trying to get students to grapple with. And ultimately, if we're backwards planning, we want all of our day-to-day experiences and all the content that we're going through day-to-day to be able to tie back to these big ideas. So the global context for this unit is orientation in time and space. Now, when IB defines orientation in time and space, they're asking us to explore the following. They're asking us to explore personal histories, exploration, journeys, the interconnectedness between individuals and societies. So how we're going to apply that in our class with this content is by discussing European exploration in Texas, exploring the journeys of those explorers and how connected our state is to the rest of the world. Like, for example, we were once connected to France and to Spain, so we belong to each of those countries at different parts of time. Different points in time, excuse me. Just a little teaser, the amusement park Six Flags Over Texas was named Six Flags because there's 6 flags that have flown over the state of Texas in its history, or 6 different nations that have claimed power over this space, 2 of which were France and Spain. If you don't know the other 4, you'll definitely learn them over the course of our year in Texas history. And we'll also just talk about how exploration impacted the natives world that had already been established way before the explorers ever got here. Now, onto that statement of inquiry, which I'm really excited about because I love that it's kid-friendly, it's really easy to debate, and really leads to some really rich conversations in our classrooms. Our statement of inquiry for this unit is, the goals of one civilization often come at a cost to another. So what that means is we can talk about disputing territorial claims. We can talk about how the French goals were different than the Spanish goals in terms of exploration, or how their experiences in Texas were different. We can talk about explorers' goals in comparison to natives' goals, particularly when we talk about the mission system. And what I love is that we get to talk about the differing perspectives that each of these groups have and how those perspectives can often lead to conflict and inequality. And so that, again, just ties back to that statement of inquiry. We get to look at the positive and negative consequences of people's goals and people's actions and how sometimes they come at a cost. Sometimes those consequences are, in fact, negative. So the way that we get to really grapple with this statement of inquiry is through our inquiry questions. You'll see those on your screen, but they're also on your unit plan. They're broken up into factual, conceptual, and debatable questions. And I love that they're scaffolded. So factual really leads into conceptual, conceptual really leads into debatable. But I love the questions in this unit, particularly the debatable questions over here on the right. I love that we get to talk about consequences. We get to talk about how the actions that you have can impact other people, how your perspectives can differ from other people. And I think it's kind of like a moment for 7th graders when they realize that the actions that they have impact other people in ways that they never even realized. So I think it's a really fun real world connection, and again leads to those rich conversations in our classroom, tying our daily experiences into the content that we're learning. And I wanted to give you just a couple of ways that you could tie these questions in your classroom. First, you can do it through hooks and do nows. I love hooks, so if you ever need help in creating a hook, you need a thought partner, call me. I love doing it. You can also embed them into closure activities, or you could ask a student to put themselves in someone else's shoes and then have them answer the question as if they were that person. So like ask a student to pretend that they were a member of the Karankawa Native tribe and then answer this question: is it okay to pursue your goals if they come at the cost to another? And see how their answer would be different than if you were just a student living in Dallas, Texas. You can also do essay assignments, short answers, CER paragraphs. I often embed these questions into my independent practice. You can also do value lineups for corner activities, all of which are outlined in your course structure, which is available on Blackboard. And I'll kind of show you where that's available later in this video. All right, we're going to go ahead and move on to stage 2. This is the assessment, the summative. So this is ultimately our day-to-day is trying to get to this assessment, get our kids to be successful on this end of unit performance task that shows us what they know and that they're able to do something with the content and the skills that they've learned over the course of the unit. So for this unit, the performance assessment is going to be a travel brochure that focuses on one of the regions of Texas. So scholars get to explore the geographic features, natural resources, economy, and climate of that region. They get to explore how those things might interact. So for example, how do the natural resources available in one region impact the economy of that region? And they also explore the Native Americans that lived in that region and how the Spanish explorers interacted with that particular Native group. There are 2 big connections between this performance assessment and our SOI, which is the cost of the goals of one group can also come at a cost to another. So the connections really do line up with those themes that we talked about earlier, adaptation and interaction. So first, our students get to delve into the 4 different regions of Texas and discover what made those regions the way that they are and the history of the people that live there. So this really speaks to the adaptation and modification. How is it that people survived in these regions, or currently do survive in those regions? And it also allows them to explore interaction by exploring the native people that lived in that region and how they interacted with the Spanish explorers or even the French explorers, and how sometimes that relationship was not always positive. History sometimes paints the explorers as this really great positive thing, but the beauty of this unit is we get this differing perspective about that situation as well. And now on to just some of the logistical things. As a teacher, I always loved getting the nitty-gritty resources and tips. So for this project, I've uploaded a brochure template on Blackboard. It is by no means necessary for you to use, but if you don't want to use it, it's a great jumping off point to just see what it could look like if you're stuck. There's also a couple of great websites that I love using and I love directing kids to. It's the Bullock Museum, which is a comprehensive Texas museum located in Austin, but they have an awesome website. And then also the Texas State Historical Society website. If you go to the handbook part of the website, you can search pretty much anything we're going to cover in the class and get some great resources as well. And it's a great place for kids to start research, especially if we haven't taught research skills yet, which by the first unit, we haven't yet. And then your other resource really is those IB rubrics. You'll find those in the unit plan. This project is going to cover criteria A, which is knowing and understanding, and criteria C, which is communicating. They're broken down by point bands on the unit plan, so you can see exactly what a student needs to do to get a certain number of points. Lowest is 0, which means not turned in or plagiarized, and the highest is an 8, which is a pretty awesome project. These rubrics can seem scary at first. I know that they kind of freaked me out when I was a first-year teacher, but the beauty of them is that they allow us to grade a student holistically, and I think that they really show us as teachers more of what our student is capable of than if we were grading their project on a checklist type rubric. The beauty of these rubrics is it just takes some practice getting used to them, and then they're pretty easy to use. But if you ever want to talk through a rubric or you want to get together, grab coffee, and grade some projects together, I'm happy to do that. Just let me know. And what if you don't want to do a brochure? Fair. Totally fair. Sometimes I've seen teachers do this as a project with another subject. So I've seen teachers do this with a technology teacher where kids are creating a video commercial for their region. You could also have them write a report. They could do a presentation. They could do a poster. There's really no reason to put yourself in a travel brochure box if you don't want to do a travel brochure. Just making sure that kids are still grappling with the same content and really getting at the same parameters. But the way that they communicate that information could be teacher choice or even something that you allow students to choose for themselves. Alrighty, and last but not least, we're going to move on to stage 3. Stage 3 is the day-to-day. How are we going to embed the big ideas from this unit into our day-to-day lessons? So the first thing I have for you here is our learning experiences. This right here is a screenshot directly from your unit plan. And this shows what I do on a day-to-day in each of the lessons, what experiences I'm giving kids. You are by no means tied to do exactly what it is that I've written down here. This is a really good jumping off point. This is a really great place to get ideas. And you're also more than welcome to do exactly what it says here. The point of the learning experiences is that we provide a wide variety of experiences for kids in the unit so that we really do address the different learning needs of all of our kids. Especially, we all know that there's different types of learners, so having a really diverse set of experiences makes sure that we're providing kids with what they need. And these learning experiences also weave in opportunities for students to practice what are called the ATLs, or the approaches to learning, which we'll cover in the next slide, and also interact with the statement of inquiry, which is really meaningful because that makes our statement of inquiry live. It makes it a living, breathing piece of our classroom rather than just being something that's written on the board. Like, kids can point to it, but they don't really know what it means. All right, I picked 2 approaches to learning for this unit. Approaches to learning is a framework that's given to us by IB. Ultimately, they're skills that students should be practicing at least once every school year across all of their subjects. So they don't need to practice all of them in your social studies class, but they should be able to practice all of them between all of their classes in one school year. So the reason I picked the 2 that I'm about to share with you is because they are directly aligned to our summative assessment. By allowing students to practice these particular skills throughout the unit, you're building them up for success on the final summative assessment. So the first one is their communication skills, which means exchanging thoughts, messages, and information effectively through interaction and negotiating ideas and knowledge with peers and teachers. And I've just given you a couple of ideas of how that is weaved into the unit. This is by no means comprehensive, but again, just a jumping off point so you can see they are really weaved intentionally into the lessons. And our second approach to learning is information literacy skills, which will be particularly important for the summative assessment because students will have to present their research in some form. So information literacy is the skill of students being able to present what they've learned in a variety of formats or platforms, and being able to give kids the opportunity to practice that throughout the unit will again ensure that they're successful in the summative assessment. And of course, all of our lessons are also connected to our statement of inquiry. Something I saw last year that I thought was really cool was a teacher, anytime there was a transition in class, put up a slide that had the statement of inquiry on it and just took a couple of minutes, maybe 2 minutes, and had a couple of kids either talk or turn them into a turn and talk or a quick write, and had kids connect what they just learned with the SOI, which is a way to make that SOI a living, breathing part of your classroom and to really drive authentic discussions about that overarching big idea. What I have here, I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's just an example of how that SOI is weaved in intentionally into each of our lessons, because the goal is that the SOI is something that our students know and that they're able to debate about and articulate their thoughts and why they think what they think. It shouldn't just be, like I said, one of those things that's up on the board. They can point to it, but they don't really know what it means or can't explain it in terms of the content that they're learning or their own lives. Alrighty, and a couple of resources. There are some websites that I mentioned earlier, but I wanted to give you just a quick screenshot of them so you know what they look like. That will be really great resources for all of the lessons in this unit. The first one is the Bullock Museum. I always click over here to the Discover side, and I get a lot of really great resources there. And then the second website is the Texas State History Association website. You can click over here, custom search, find pretty much anything that we're going to cover throughout the entire school year. This is one of my favorite resources and is always a go-to when kids have to do research. And just a couple of other resources are also available. We have annotated model lessons for 2 lessons in this unit. The first one being lesson 4, which is all about the native Texan groups. That will be an investigation lesson in the style of stations. I love stations. I think that they're one of my favorite things ever because I get to be a facilitator, I get to be a questioner, but students really carry the bulk of the thinking, and I love that. So if you ever need help with stations, I'm your gal. And then you also have an annotated model lesson for lesson 5, which is about the 3 Gs, or the reasons for European exploration, and the Aztecs. That will be a 5-step lesson plan. And the difference between investigation and 5-step lesson plans is outlined in our course structure. And I'm going to show you really quickly on Blackboard how to access that so that you know where to find some of the most important resources. So if you go onto Blackboard, I'm pulling up the wrong things. Sorry, there it is. I'm still new to this tech stuff. So if you log into Blackboard, you will immediately find a page that looks like this. You will want to click on, once it loads, you'll want to click on 7th grade Humanities. That's going to be our course, and I'm going to upload a lot of different resources. Up here, under curricular resources, this is going to be super helpful. You'll find your annotated model lessons here, unit plans and previews here, common assessments here, and the curricular documents. This is a really helpful place. The course structure is going to be really helpful because it will outline a lot of different strategies. It'll talk about investigation versus 5-step lessons. And then you'll also, if you go over here, this menu on the side, content resources are going to be over here. This resource bank is really helpful because it's all resources vetted by myself and our curriculum coordinator, Namisha. So you know that they're good things that are uploaded there rather than having to kind of roll the dice when you Google and not knowing if the resource is good or not. And then you also have archived curriculum. I've been the CTL for the last 2 years, so you have all of the work that I've done over the last 2 years. You by no means have to use this, but it could be a really great place for ideas, a jump off point. And then there's also the archived curriculum from the CTL before me. So you also get the ideas of another person, which is a really great resource. All right, now if I can get us back to our preview, here we are. All right, now I also wanted to give you just a couple of suggestions in case you happen to get behind. First off, it's okay. It happens. Sometimes we have to reteach. Sometimes a quiz takes a whole class period instead of half a class period. Things happen. It's okay. You're not the only person who's ever gotten behind. I've done it a million times. So I've written down some of the things that I've done to catch up. But if you need any other ideas or you need a thought partner on how to combine lessons, how to combine content, just let me know. So first off, you could build in time throughout the unit to do the performance assessment rather than take an entire class day to do the performance assessment. So maybe you build in like a 15-minute, 20-minute chunk of time in 4 different lessons rather than one whole day. You could also combine lesson 6 and 7 about the explorers. So instead of doing 1 day French, 1 day Spanish, just do a whole day on explorers. You could combine lesson 9 and 10, which is about the impact and decline of the mission system. So instead of 1 day impact, 1 day decline, just do 1 lesson on both of those things. And again, like I said, call, text, email me if you have any questions about how to combine, what content to prioritize. I'm happy to help you out there. Alrighty, we have come to the end of our first unit preview. Here you have my contact information. I am probably best at text. We'll probably answer that the quickest over the summer. And once we're in the school year, text or email or calling is going to be all about the same. But right now, while we're still in the summer weeks, if you have any questions, text is probably easiest. My email is just yschroeder, my last name, at uplifteducation.com. I check that fairly regularly, even in the summer. So feel free to shoot me an email with any questions that you have. Thank you for your time. I'm really excited to be able to get together with all of you in just a couple of short weeks at Collaboration Day kickoff. In the meantime, have an amazing last moments of your summer, and I can't wait to see you guys soon. Bye.